right, you guys, welcome to another episode of Building a Private Practice, Success Stories of Therapists in the Real World. And today I'm joined with Cami Stork. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist in Northern California. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm also joined by Houdini, my cat. So if you hear purring, that's who it is. So really, for those of you guys listening or watching, the purpose of these talks is for you guys to be encouraged and to hear the many different ways people go about building their practices. And I've known Cami for a couple years, and she's been through many twists and turns. And so I'm excited to talk about how that's been for her. So why don't you start off with why go into private practice in the first place, and when did you decide to do that?
So the why, for me, the why was always kind of set from graduate school. My husband is a firefighter, and so his schedule is very flexible in the sense that he has a lot of time off. And I knew that I wanted to be able to have flexibility and a lot of time off with him. I do like running a business from my previous background before working in mental health. So I knew that going into private practice would allow me to run a business and have flexibility and earn a really good income while doing that. So it was kind of always my goal in getting through my hours. I started running a private practice kind of through a nonprofit back in 2007 is when I started. And then I went completely on my own into straight private practice in 2009.
How did you bridge that gap?
From going from the nonprofit to just private practice?
That's like the biggest question I always get. How do I bridge it?
Well, luckily the nonprofit that I worked through was run very similarly to a private practice. So once I was fully licensed and on my own in 2009, I had a supervisor that I was working through the nonprofit that was very encouraging, let me understand the business end. I knew how much our rent was. I knew how much it was costing for advertising on Psychology Today. So I was planning the business before I was able to run it on my own.
That is so important. Yeah. Say that one more time.
I was planning the business before I was able to run it on my own. So that was something that was really key for me, because once I became fully licensed and was able to set up my own place, it was within a month of being licensed that I was renting my own lease and I was buying my own furniture and moving all that. So I felt very confident and comfortable at that point of knowing what to do as far as the business end of things. And it's been profitable and successful ever since, and continues to grow in the different ways that I twist and turn. So there's my interests change throughout the years, or my timing changes of where I want to spend my time. So it's been nice to run that business and not have somebody dictate that for me.
So what does that look like? Like, as you're saying, as your life changes, can you give some examples of what you mean?
Childbirth. Having kids, obviously. So running the private practice, I've been able to decide what days I go into work and how many hours do I want to spend in my practice. And, when my kids were really small, I did more teaching than I do now, because I could go into teaching in the evenings at a university when my kids were asleep. So I could still make money in my business without having to compromise my family time, which is my ultimate goal. Is, I want to make memories with my children. I want to be able to take vacation when I want with my husband. So that allowed me kind of the flexibility of being able to do that.
Okay, cool. And what are some of the things that you did, like you planned before you launched, but what are some of the things that you've done that have helped you grow the business?
I would say that there is no reason that's acceptable to not have your business cards with you and to not talk about being a business owner. My husband gives me a hard time because he says I can weave it into any conversation. But as a therapist, especially when I, work with interns and trainees myself, I always say people don't come knocking on your door and say, hey, I need therapy today. They have to know who you are. And since we are the product, you have to be promoting that all the time. So any interaction that you have with somebody, they may not become your client, but their neighbor might, or their coworker might. So it's really a matter of people understanding what you do and where you are and how to find you. So I say you just have to always be willing to talk with pride about what you do and realize that you are an expert in the field that you work in.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have my business cards with me. I'm always finding a way, if it's obviously appropriate, to talk about like, or connecting other people with services. Even if I'm not appropriate for them, I want them to know that I can still be a resource for them. So it's just something that you can kind of weave into most conversations, I would say.
Yeah. And I think it's sort of, you've got a priority, it stays on top of mind, and you want to make sure that you're helpful in whatever place that is. And if there's a place where that does fit, it's important to share it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I think just for therapists, in the beginning, I, like many other people in graduate school, heard you'll never make money in this business, or you're going to work 60 hours a week in this business, or, therapists don't do marketing. And I just call baloney the whole thing. I think that thinking sometimes outside of the marketing box is what, especially in the very beginning of my business, made it so successful. And, getting other clinicians that are like-minded around you to do that. There's plenty of business for everybody. So getting groups of people together to promote each other's businesses and really thinking outside the marketing box was really, really important in the beginning.
How would you define success in your private practice?
I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I feel like success is an ever-moving bar. Because what I would have said is successful if you asked me in 2007 was different than 2009 and is different now in 2015. For me right now, success is really just honing in my time. In the sense that, what I want to get my clinical hours down to, what projects outside of my clinical hours do I want to be doing. But for me, success has been going on truly successful since 2007, when I feel like I can wake up every day and it doesn't feel like work. I don't know everybody that can say that. My husband and I are very blessed. We both love our careers. And so I love it. I wake up and I don't feel like it's work. This is a scheduled thing on my work day, and I get to talk with a friend, via conference call, and this is check box. This is part of my work day. So it's just super cool. I feel like in this field, especially, there are so many different things that you can do. If you want to write a book, if you want to teach, if you want to do just clinical hours, if you want to do conferences, you can really do whatever you're passionate about and find your niche in that. And that to me is amazing, because nobody tells me when to take lunch. Nobody tells me when I can take so I get to live my life around a career that I love. And to me, I feel like that is success, but it's always raising that bar to how do I make that even more efficient and even more happy. I want to live life, I guess, is what it boils down to.
Amen.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the stuff that people are probably wondering about. When has it been hard?
So I would say, when has it been hard? I think that every life shift makes it a challenge, because when I shifted over from corporate America and working in going to mental health, I felt like it was this huge tunnel. It was, okay, now I have to get through graduate school, and then I have to do so many hours. And then when I do that, then I have to sit for a licensure exam. And then how am I ever going to find the clients? So I felt like it always feels like there's a challenge ahead as life events are changing. So explaining that to my spouse initially, like, you're going from this corporate America secure job where somebody pays your vacation, and now you want to do what? And then having children, and then, maturing in my business and really, doing that from the perspective of, that I can kind of hone in my dreams a little bit more. So I think it gets challenging when you are shifting any part of it, but I definitely operate from the place of abundance. So I kind of always just have this belief that it'll just work out. And I think that it does if you put in the effort and you treat your business like a business. So just like anything else, you have to put in your time with your marketing and people knowing what you're doing that's different. And if you do that, I just think that it's hard for it not to be successful. It feels like it's just kind of like that formula, 2 + 2 is generally 4. So if you put in your marketing, if you put your face out there to people, then it's highly likely to be successful. So I think that the challenges just come with life shifts. My personal challenge tends to come when my husband just comes home randomly and says he's leaving on a strike team for 2.5 weeks.
Oh my God.
That can be a challenge, because as a business owner, I'm also a mom, and as much as I love my business, I am a wife and a mother first. So they're always my first priority. So I have to make sure that that lines up with my business commitments. And so the scramble of that, I would say, is probably my biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people face, especially if you're coming from like a full-time job, either with an organization or coming from corporate America and shifting over to mental health. It can be scary to not know where those things are coming from, but I feel like what you do just builds that house for you. It puts, brick by brick, it builds on itself. So
if anyone's listening and watching, if you can't tell already, Cami is a very positive person.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think that there is something about that, because with your positivity, my experience of you is that you've seized opportunities where other people have feared them.
Correct.
And from that, it's opened doors. And so I think there is something about, too, like what you're saying, there's the planning, there's the going for it, there's having confidence, but there's also this believing in yourself, believing in what you do, and knowing that it's valuable,
Right.
It's so
Right.
important.
Well, I think it's just a matter of sometimes you just have to put yourself out there and kind of see where everything falls. There's been several opportunities that have come up where it's just like, screw it, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna do it. An example of that was the Most Awesome Conference when we were there, and Julie Hanks was doing her media presentation, and we were doing a HARO submission, and I'm like, whatever. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's perfect. I don't know if it's right. And I was like, screw it. I'm just going to hit send. And then of course it gets quoted in an article later. So it's just kind of one of those things where if you just, you kind of throw the deck of cards up and see how they land, with the belief that however they land, you can make that work. And that's kind of how I tend to operate with my business overall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for someone that's starting out, what kind of advice do you have for them?
The best advice that I have is link up with positive colleagues and positive coaches that have a belief that the business can be successful. One of the very first mentors that I had, I think one of the best books that she ever recommended was Wayne Dyer, The Power of Positive Intention, which is clearly where I operate from. But really hooking up with the right people that believe in this business and look at it not only as a business, but also as a healing profession. I think that that's key. I think there can tend to be kind of a lot of kind of naysayers or negativity. And I just don't, I believe in the company you keep, I guess, is the nice way to say it.
True.
So,
what is that? Like, you're as successful as the top 6-7 people you hang out with? Like, look around
right.
you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm really a firm believer in that. And I also know and can humble myself too, that there may be somebody that can do something better than I can. And so offering maybe a balance and a benefit to them. So I think working with people where you can recognize your own strengths and weaknesses and recognizing their strengths and weaknesses and kind of pairing those two things up so that you both are mutually beneficial to each other.
Before we started recording, you and I were talking about like your website or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the point you had made was like, you're at the point where
when in doubt, hire out.
There you go.
Yes.
And I think there is this sense of like, there's a lot of bootstrapping in our communities, like you have to do it all. I was very much a bootstrapper, did it all. That is probably like one of my struggles is hiring out, is like trusting other people when I'm like, I could just do it. But I'm learning, it's taken me some time to delegate and those kinds of things. And also to acknowledge, like, being a business owner, you need to know the big picture, but some of the tasks you can't do it all.
Right. Absolutely.
Let the designer be an amazing designer and let the writer be an amazing writer and let them help you shine. Whereas maybe that's not your skill set.
I completely agree 100%. And I think that part of that too comes from, at least for me, was kind of that control piece. I felt like nobody was ever going to love my business as much as I was.
Yeah.
And really understanding, again, I think especially in our profession, if you link up with other professionals that are of the feeling of abundance that you are and have that positive feeling that you do, that really everybody has so much to give, and kind of letting somebody into that and their expertise come into play is huge. So for me, in the initial part of it was control. I wanted to understand it. I wanted to be the one that if it got screwed up, I had nobody to blame but me. And I really feel like now, like you said, kind of knowing your own talents and knowing where those don't lie. And for me, it was, I don't also want to spend 20 hours doing a website. Like, it's not worth it to me. I can think of 20 hours of other things I'd rather be doing than doing that. And so finding a really good recommendation and somebody that you can really connect with, I think is important, that has a like-minded vision that you do, and kind of just letting go of that control piece of it for me was huge.
Mm-hmm. You just need to know enough to know what to ask for.
Exactly.
That's about it.
I completely agree. I completely agree.
Well, when you think too about where you're, okay, you were talking about the success markers. I'm just curious, what was like your first marker? Like, oh, when I hit this, that will be awesome.
Okay, well, I'm going to be extremely transparent and honest with this answer.
Great.
So my spouse and my husband, I said it works. He's a fireman, and for years he was very much like, okay, yeah, this practice thing, this business, have fun with a hobby kind of thing. And it literally took 3 years of tax returns of beating out his salary, of him going, oh, okay, I guess this is kind of legit now, right? I'm like, did you think we bullshitted it the first couple of years? Like the CPA and I are like in cahoots or something? That to me, honestly, was a huge marker of success, because it was like, hey, here you have all of these stipulations of the employer that you work for, and they tell you when to go to work, and they tell you, all these things. I have all the freedom that I want. I have all of the income, that I want, with being able to set it and work it as a business owner. And for me, that was a huge kind of like aha moment. It was like, this is real. This is amazing. And it's sticking. Because in the beginning, it was very much like, okay, yeah, this is a good year, but next year should be pretty good too, hopefully. And now it's like, no, it's just pretty consistent. But that comes back to being, I think, a good business owner and knowing your numbers, and really sitting down and knowing where your income is coming from and what your expenditures are. And when you can manage that, then you can measure it, I think, more appropriately and not from a fear-based place. But my aha moment was like 3 years of beating him.
Mine was beating my salary at the county.
Yeah, that didn't matter. My husband and I are very competitive.
I'm married to a teacher. It's not that hard.
Yeah, him and I have our own little competitions that go
Oh my gosh, you sound like Joe Sanic. He can make everything into a competition. One time we were at Kinko's making copies, and he's like, "Let's see who can staple faster." Yeah. I'm like, seriously?
He might have made a good fireman then too, because everything is a dice roll or a competition or something. So yes, we can be a competitive couple in that way.
Okay, so tell me now, where's the bar? What is the next vision here?
So my next vision, oh gosh, you have to ask me this at such an interesting time. Like, I feel like
I'm excited.
My career's got kind of a lot going on. For me, my next bar is really having, I'm really getting into doing retreats, and I would like to have those, booked out kind of like the year in advance. That would be my ultimate next goal. And getting my clinical hours down, which I know sounds weird for some people, but getting them down to free me up to do those other things. So that's kind of my overall goal, is getting the client load down just a bit. And I've recently hired 2 new employees, so kind of getting them up and launched, and having them on that success train also is kind of where I am.
So you've expanded by having employees, and then now you're looking at other ways of helping people that leverage your time and kind of make a good impact in the lives of the couples you're working with.
Yes, correct.
It's pretty awesome.
It's pretty fun. Yeah. Field of dreams, build it and they will come. That's kind of
Yeah. I think too, it's like there's many paths, like what you're saying. There's many paths to how you do your practice or how you work as a contractor independently.
Right.
And there's also many paths as to ways you generate income.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all timing, like you're saying. Like maybe there was an opportunity that came up when you were pregnant. We were talking about that at one point in a prior conversation, and like you just it wasn't good timing. You're about to give birth.
Yes.
And, right.
Yeah.
But then other things come around. And I think that's the case too with any multiple stream of income. There is a time and a place. And for those retreats, I mean, you've been preparing for that for a couple of years of like thinking about when is the time and where is this going to fit in.
Right.
Yeah. And now having staff, I would think that would allow you to do more of the multiple streams.
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely, it's really that time leverage is kind of where everything I think of right now with my business is kind of that time leverage. It's like, how am I making the most efficient use of my time and, still bringing in, the income that I want to bring in, but really having fun. I mean, that's the big thing. I've tried and done a bunch of different things, and that's my gauge. If I'm not loving it, if I'm not walking in and feeling like it's not work, then it's not my thing.
Yeah.
So.
That's a great monitor. I love it. So what are some ways if people want to connect with you or learn more about what you're doing? Where can they find you?
So you can find me at soullegacytherapy.com. Or you can find me at camistort-mft.com. Either one will direct you to my website and kind of let you know a little bit about what's going on and the new employees and all that good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for spending some time with me and Cami today. And I would love for you guys to post below what you learned just from hearing Cami's story. I hope you're encouraged because Cami's like built an amazing practice, and it's not without hard work and dedication, but there is huge advantages to her positivity and her efforts and just trying things and seeing what fits and knowing that something will, and having trust that there is a path that's perfect for her. So thank you so much, Cami. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Take care, Kelly.
All right.
Bye.